Hi, guys. Welcome to Real Food Recovery, where we are a podcast that we talk honestly about healing from the effects of ultra processed foods, one real step at a time. Hey, Jamie, what is going on? Let's say hello to her first. What's happening, sister?
Nothing. Happy to be here. It's an interesting topic today, so I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to discussing it.
Me too. And this is one that I think so many people wrestle with silently. We're going to talk about what holds you back from starting recovery, and maybe even scarier is, what do you fear most once you begin? The truth is, most of us don't get stuck because we don't know what to do. We get stuck because of fear, which, as
Mm.
we know, is the thing that holds us back from any forward movement in our life in any area. But fear, if we don't talk about it, can quietly control us. Do you agree with all of that?
Mhm. Yeah. And again, I think it's important to talk about, if you are talking about it, doing so with a safe person,
Good
and
point.
somebody that's trusted, right? Or somebody that's a
Yeah.
professional that can kind of help you unpack that.
Yes. Oh,
There's
yes,
a
because
lot of deep stuff that comes attached to people's fear.
if you get the wrong person, man, that can lead you down a path you don't want to go.
Yeah, do more harm, your good
I
intentions
agree.
do more harm.
Yeah, and that's a good point too. People do have good intentions, but they may not be just qualified to help people in that arena. So yeah, good point. So
Yes.
what we did is we started out by asking some of the members of our online food use process use disorder group, our group coaching, what their fears were, what kept them from starting. And we quizzed some of our Facebook group members, and let me tell you, we're going to share what they offered as far as what their reasonings were for not getting started. The first one was, what held me back was being in a low mental and physical state and a general feeling that this was an insurmountable problem.
Yeah, I think that's a interesting, right? It aligns with exactly what you said. Another thing that our members have said is learning that she believes she has an addiction that's caused by the chemicals in these foods, precisely and purposefully engineered to hijack her brain.
Mhm.
And that the second part of that is that her coping mechanisms were not my enemy, but habits I developed early on when I didn't have any resources and were designed to protect me. That this understanding gave her a new perspective. And when I learned how to work with my brain instead of fighting all the time, I learned that recovery could be peaceful, not miserable. And then I was ready to embrace
Totally.
it.
I don't you think that's a big one? Just the fear of misery.
Yes. Yes.
Another one is, I had times where I just plain did not want to get better. I understand that. The comfort I derived from food was too important to me, and I couldn't imagine living without it. I think this was partly because I did try so many times to give it up, but in the wrong ways. Gosh, I'm identifying with this one. I saw recovery as a life in constant battle against myself and my cravings, wanting what I could not have and constantly holding my real self back out of desperation. That's the only way I had ever experienced life without food, and I just could not fathom living that way. Who could? The food
Right.
was killing me, but at least it brought me temporary relief from trying to be perfect all the time, and I couldn't imagine giving that up. Oh man, this it's almost like I wrote that one.
Fear of being uncomfortable with soothing foods is what another member shared. She knew it was going to be hard, fear that life will be so boring without sugar. And
Yes.
I want to add something to that. I think that's so interesting. So, a lot of folks who come to addiction, and we'll talk about this deeper, I think, here, but a lot of folks that come to addiction because their life, maybe early life or life as an adolescent is chaotic, right? It's
Hmm.
undependable. They've got undependable caregivers, undependable living situations, undependable, maybe even trauma in their life, or all three. And so a lot of times people are looking for hits of dopamine, right? From alcohol, drugs, food, gambling, sex, spending. They're looking for those hits of dopamine to mimic what they grew up always being uncertain and being, getting a little hit of dopamine that things were okay and then having things be out of control. So I think people look, and this is totally subconscious. They look to create some sort of imbalance in their body so that they can feel normal.
Yeah.
And it's something that is subconscious and maybe even unconscious for millions of people. I don't even that they wouldn't even know they're doing it. But that
Hmm.
was explained to me early on in my recovery, that sometimes I was seeking, to sort of hurt myself with food because I was so used to being hurt in other ways by family or friends or life or whatever. So that was almost like I was used to feeling that way. So I would just use food to create it.
Yeah.
And again, this is very different for a lot of people, but that uncertainty and that maybe self-doubt or shame, those things can be created by the food, just like they can by other drugs or addictive substances. So people could be unintentionally and subconsciously doing this to themselves.
Yeah. I agree with all of that, and I have heard more and more about that with kids that grew up in chaos are uncomfortable when there's not chaos.
Right.
It just I hear more and more about that. And the other thing that jumped out about what this person said is that fear that life would be so boring without sugar. It's like you're taking the exclamation point out of your life. That sugar adds an exclamation point
Exactly.
on any event or something like that. And what would I do without the exclamation point? I would be so bored. Anyway,
Yes.
I just that jumped off the out of the off the page to me. So
Yeah.
FOMO for sure, fear of standing out, not fitting in, fear of embarrassment, and for most of us, fear of failing yet again. They have that capitalized, along with overwhelm at the seemingly impossibility of it all.
Yes. And the last one, the last member says, I don't know who I'll be without sugar. So that's,
We're going to talk about
there's
that.
some identity work there that that member can do around
Hmm.
associating, food with identity.
Yeah. Do you want to share what stopped you from getting started?
Oh, fear for sure. Yeah. Fear of failure, fear of maybe even again, fear of success. Um, and again, that's something that is
Oh,
deep for a lot of people. They don't even know it's in there.
yeah.
Uh, those two versions of that same coin.
Yeah. And if you are successful, can I really keep this up? And then how painful will it be when I can't? So, yeah, I think for me, I didn't want to give up the drug. I liked it. I liked it a lot. I liked every time I put sugar in my mouth. It was great. I loved it and I couldn't wait to get the next bite. Uh, but I was also fighting overtime trying to figure out how to keep it in my life and get it out at the same time. And I
Mhm.
think lack of knowledge was a big one because really I didn't understand truly what the sugar was doing to me on a cellular level. And quite frankly, I think it took some maturity to start being concerned about my health as I got older. I really, when you're younger, you feel a little bit more invincible. But I think as I got
Yes.
older, my health became more of a, oh, I need to start paying attention here. And also the lack of knowledge about recovery, because that line of thinking I had never come across until I was late 50s. I had never heard about recovering from this. And I had never heard about sugar being an addiction either. I really always thought it was just lack of willpower because nobody around me was talking about
Yes.
that. But once I heard about it, then I jumped right in.
Mhm.
But I jumped right in, but I still was trying to negotiate my way to keep the plant-based sweeteners in because quite frankly, the plant-based sweeteners still gave me a little bit of a high, and I had to learn about what plant-based sweeteners were doing in my body. They were keeping those cravings alive, but I fought tooth and nail trying to argue my way that it wasn't. They were
Yeah.
because the sugar binges, then although my sugar binges were fewer and far between, they were still happening. That because so it did keep that sweet craving alive. We're going to share some statistics today, and research shows that 91% of people who attempt diets feel they will fail before they even begin. And that
Mhm.
belief alone can keep people from starting at all. I remember one woman telling me she had a whole drawer of diet books and meal plans that had failed her. And she said, if I start again, I'll quit again. I'll just prove to myself that I'm a failure. And that fear kept her from even trying something new. But once she
Yes.
realized recovery wasn't about perfection, but about progress, she finally gave herself permission to take just like this one small step, which we really emphasize in recovery. Don't change everything at once. We can do this in a painless way. And she did. And it started just with swapping out her processed breakfast bar for real eggs in the morning. And that one tiny little success gave her enough oomph to want to then it just pulls you, that success kind of pulls you into saying, hey, that wasn't so bad, and maybe I can make one more small change without
Right.
too much pain. Do you think that a lot of people spend an exorbitant amount of energy negotiating, for example, what I was talking about with trying to hang on to the sweeteners versus giving it up, trying to justify healthier processed foods? I'm doing in air quotes because they are afraid of letting it go completely. That's a crutch. What am I going to do when the cravings come up and it hurts so bad and you have that panic of I've got to get something and I've got to do it right now or I'm going to die? Did you do the bargaining too? Did that hold you back, the
Oh,
negotiating?
I'm sure I did, and I probably still do. Um, and I think that but that's why these foods exist, because the manufacturers know that humans do
Great
this,
point.
so they
Great
create
point.
foods to be the sort of middle ground foods. Um, and they're marketed as such, right? I mean, look at
Mhm.
and thank God they're not still available, but back in the 90s, I guess it was the Snackwell cookies. I mean, that was like everyone's trade-off.
Yeah, the fat free or low fat when that craze
Yeah.
was, oh my
So, and again,
gosh.
and now here's what I notice. I've noticed, for me, I will do much better with single ingredient foods, of course. Like I can easily moderate single ingredient foods. And if I'm gonna indulge in something that's processed, I try to go for like the way grandma would have made it or great grandma would have made it.
Ah,
I
mhm.
stick to, those kinds of foods if I'm going to have it, and then I make sure it's portion controlled and I just sort of eat it more mindfully. But if I were to go back into like the heavily chemically laden,
Oh
highly
yeah.
processed, mass produced, typical junk foods, I would never be able to regulate those. I just
Ch-
wouldn't. The chemicals are so
ha-
concentrated in those foods to make
Yeah,
you want more of them.
yeah.
It's not worth it to me. There's like we joke
Mhm.
about, the Lay's slogan, Lay's potato chips, you can't just eat, but you can't eat just one. They know you can't eat just one. They engineered them that way.
Yeah, yeah. Did
So
I
again,
tell you? Oh, go ahead.
we're right where they want us to be, the food
Yeah,
manufacturer wants us to be.
we were on family vacation this last summer. I can't remember if I told you. I might have told you this. Somebody brought, I don't know, fire hot Cheetos. I don't know why. I put my hand in that bag like an idiot. And I'm like, whoo! I mean, talk about a brain rush. And I mean, I could not, it was a real fight to not finish off the rest of that bag of those, I don't know what they're called,
Yeah.
crunchy
Yeah.
baked, I don't
It's a
know.
thing. I see them a lot of places and I don't get it, but yeah, it's a thing. And people, they obviously have created some sort of chemical response in the body and brain.
Yeah, it was literally like I inhaled a drug, a orange dyed
Yeah.
finger dyed drug. And I it was like, I mean, if I didn't know, if I didn't have the background I have, my face would be to the bottom of that bag instantly because it was like a major rush. And I think since I've been off the processed food so long that when you do have something like that, it is an extra woo
Yeah.
to the
I
brain.
really, I really believe that it pays to take the time if you're going to buy something processed to read the ingredients to make sure that the
Ah,
highly addictive stuff is not in there. Like if you absolutely have to do it, and again, I think, sometimes it'll be trial and error for some folks, and for others, they'll just know, okay, I really don't do well with those ingredients. For me, it's anything high fructose corn syrup,
oh
anything
yeah.
highly I just don't even, I really don't even touch it because I know I won't be able to stop. But that's how it's engineered. There's nothing wrong with me.
Yeah.
I'm, and I say this all the time, but I'm responding exactly the way that I'm meant to respond to those hyperpalatable tastes.
Yeah, and if you can't pronounce the ingredient on that label, that should be the
Oh
rule.
yeah, that
You
should,
can
yeah.
only eat it if you can pronounce it, if you can use it in a sentence.
Exactly. And I'll tell you, when I do it again, it's mindful, it's planned for, it's not something that I just eat willy-nilly. But when I do eat those foods, if they are like, the way grandma or great grandma would have made them, I do much better. It is easy for me to portion control. It's easy for me to stop. I can keep them in the house without having them call to me.
That's what I
It's
was going to ask
way
you if you had them
easier.
in the house. Yeah. Yeah, interesting. No, I love this discussion. The next thing we are going to get into is that another layer of this is fear of identity, like Jamie was mentioning earlier, because those ultra
Yes.
processed foods can become part of who we are, our traditions, our social life, even our comfort in grief and celebration. Isn't that an irony? Food is for grief and celebration as well. And recovery can feel like you're losing a piece of yourself. There was a man who told me
Yes.
every Friday night, my wife and I would order pizza. It's who we are, it's what we do. If I stop that, I don't even know who I am anymore. He wasn't afraid of just losing the pizza, he was afraid of losing connection and routine with his
Yes.
loved ones. But then he reframed this and he and his wife started a new Friday tradition of cooking together. By the way, just to interrupt his story, I love reframing. It is one of the most powerful tools you can ever use. And if we had time, I would tell about how I've done a few of that this week, and it has saved my backside. But anyway, they started a new tradition of grilling meat, roasting vegetables, and guess what? Their new ritual became even more meaningful than the old one. Do you feel like you have ever felt like food was tied to your identity, like who you were, and letting go of that almost felt like this is dramatic, but grieving?
Oh yeah, for sure. Back when, again, I kind of realized the food addiction side of things, I had to start understanding um, what was, again, showing up as grief. And once I started to really look at what was making me grieve, then I was able to see it. Okay, this is grief, and I understand what it
Hello?
is, and now I'm going to re not redefine, but maybe categorize the way that I look at using food for ease and comfort, right? And
Yeah.
then I realized that I was using food for things that connection was designed for.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
it's a process. It's a process I think for everyone, but I do remember that deep grief that I felt when I first realized I have to give up these foods.
Oh, I know. It can be because in the beginning, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm never gonna have birthday cake again. And whether I do or whether I don't, that was a feeling, a thought that I had in the beginning. And now I'll decide if that it's true for me right now. It may not always be true for me, but where I am now, and now I feel good about it and I'm comfortable with it. So anyway, yeah, it's a real issue, is what we're trying to say. Another one, when we're talking about fears, is fear of the social impact, because fear of what others will think. What if my family doesn't support me? What if my friends think I'm being too extreme? There's another statistic that where studies show that 70% of food decisions are influenced by social context, who we're with, where we are, what's offered. That means changing how we eat can shake up our social world. So there was another mom who told me once that she was afraid if she brought her own food to the soccer games, people will think she's weird or on some fad. So for her, it was about the embarrassment of being different. But the more she showed up with her cooler of real food, the more other moms quietly pulled her aside and said, I wish I could do what you're doing, which I've had that experience too, that people secretly want to be doing what you're doing. And she realized that her courage gave others permission to make changes too. Do you feel like you were in that fear group of worrying about how recovery would affect your relationships or social lives? And if so, how did you navigate those in the beginning?
It did. It definitely did affect my relationships and social life,
Yeah,
and to really understand that, that I didn't want it to change, but my relationships did change. I lost friends that were close to me. My relationship with my family changed.
yeah,
My family was very food focused.
right.
And so I had to do things a little differently. for my recovery. And that really started a whole cascade for me of doing things differently from a lot of my friends and family anyway, which was necessary for my recovery. I mean,
Yeah.
it was hard to live it at the time because I just felt a lot of loss. But
Yeah.
I also realized that if I don't make these changes, go along with, follow my own path, like I've always said, I'm going to go off the cliff like everyone else.
Yeah. I know. I used the girls that I used to go out to lunch with. I My phone ain't ringing the same no more. Because I like to say, let's get together and take a walk. And I
Right.
mean, you really visit more when you do that and get to know each other more
That's
because
right.
you're just focused on the person. When I went out to lunch, I was focused on what's the best thing on the menu. But yeah, if you don't want to join in those activities, yeah, my phone does ring less as far as socially. And it's okay. It's okay.
Mhm.
It can be a refining place for
Well,
you.
and God brought a whole bunch of other people that are aligned to my
Yes.
values into my life, right? So,
Yes. That's exactly what I was going to say, that you find out it's just so much more enjoyable to spend time on a deeper level with people with your values, exactly like you said, and you find out who your real friends are.
yes, yes, exactly.
So this is the next big one when it comes to fear. It's fear of emotions because sometimes the real fear isn't food, it's those emotions underneath. So when we
Mhm.
take away those numbing effects of ultra processed food, suddenly stress, loneliness, boredom is my big one, or grief feels so much louder than we ever experienced before because we were used to using food to numb. We had one listener share that the late night ice cream was the only time she felt calm. She said, if I give this up, then I'll have to feel the loneliness that I've been avoiding. And that was raw honesty. But when she replaced that ritual with tea and journaling, she learned, keyword learned,
Mhm.
to sit with her feelings in a healthier way. She told me later, it was scary at first, but I realized the feelings didn't destroy me. They did pass, and I
Mhm.
woke up without the guilt for the first time in
Right.
years. Did you experience that too, where emotions all of a sudden started coming up more strongly when you started eating the real food?
Oh yeah, and I would spent so long trying to avoid emotions and grief that yeah,
Right.
it was a
Yep.
process for me to get used to feeling them. But now that I'm used to feeling the emotions and I have gone through the gamut of feeling all of the emotions, really, really, dark days of the soul, the nights of the soul. I've gone through that. So now, um, if I'm eating to avoid a feeling now, of course, if I have to do that, I'm aware that I'm doing it, and I have foods that I go to that are, single ingredient foods that I keep on
Yeah.
hand for, in the fridge for those kinds of situations. But
Yeah.
it's not often that I do that, as like mechanically as I used to do it. Now
Yeah.
at least I'm aware, hey, I'm doing it, and I'm going to mitigate it by using, and it is using food that won't harm me. But that was a journey. That was probably the longest part of the journey. And there are some times when I'm numb to what is really going on, and I will still use the food without really stopping and saying, what am I doing? And it's not, thank God it's not binges of junk anymore, but
Yeah.
it certainly can be. um I will either eat outside of times that I'm hungry, or I will eat too much of my single ingredient food,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever I prepared for that meal, or set aside for that meal. I'll overeat a little bit, and I'll stop myself and say, it's not even a binge, but I'm past the point of comfortably
Yeah.
full.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
So
do
again,
that.
you have to, and it's gotten way better than it was.
I so glad you said that because that may be one of our biggest points today is it gets better. It's a journey. That's why we keep using the word journey because where you are today ain't going to be where you are a year from now. It
No,
just stair stepping your way forward.
exactly.
And
Exactly.
and again, I have said this a million times. I'm grateful that there's no end point. I don't want to stop working on this. I always want to be refining myself. And it is a practice. And that's another word I like is practice because we're just practicing this journey
Mhm.
every day. And because we're in a society that is set up to work against us as far as our food environment. So, and
Yes.
you, it's the building the muscles, right? You're lifting the weights. That's how you build the muscles is through exercising these principles. So,
Yes.
yes.
And I'll say this, I was first, this is somebody like me who was afraid of feeling her feelings for I mean, ever, forever, since I
Hmm.
was a little girl. Really, like I have sat with some feelings and a lot of them, and especially in this latest chapter of life. And I have sat with the feelings and just, very, very dark times that I've lived through the last little while of life. And it's fine. Like I'm still here to talk about it and I haven't had, any major binges or issues with food. Like I'm just kind of doing my thing and I'm
Hmm.
noticing when I'm full and I'm stopping, and I'm noticing when I'm hungry. And when I just sit with the feelings, I have other, other outlets, right? I have connection points. I have people I can reach out to. I have journaling I can do. I can get outside and walk. I can do things that bring, I have other tools.
Hmm. Yeah.
So, and it's
I,
really no feelings have killed me. I'm still here to say. Sorry to interrupt you.
yeah, no, that is well said. And we're not making light, but yeah, emotions have never been on a death certificate so far. That
Yes,
has never
that's
been
hilarious.
a cause of death. So they do pass too, right? Like 20
Yes,
minutes or so, they really do ease up, especially if you're not fighting it, if you're willing to say, okay, just come
right.
on in, just wash on over me. I'm here. I'm
Right.
ready to just stare right back at you, stare down the barrel. And it's amazing how when you stare back, they dissipate. It's like
Yes,
kryptonite. So,
yes.
love that. I'm glad we brought that up. So, here's the good news. Fear lose their power when we name them. Starting recovery doesn't mean the fears are going to disappear. That again, we just talked about that. It's a journey, but it does mean we won't let them rule us. So, a couple of strategies that help. Start small. We mentioned that earlier. Instead of I'll never eat sugar again, try I'll eat a real food breakfast for 1 week. Build support. We talked about that. We have our online food addiction recovery program, group coaching program at Real Food Recovery. Community changes everything. People who recover successfully almost always have support. And we talked about reframing a little bit earlier. Reframe failure. Every stumble is data, not disaster. One more story is I had my own moment with this. I remember going to a birthday party and staring at the cake thinking, if I don't eat this, I'm going to miss out on all the fun. It's the exclamation point that I was talking about earlier that I was going to miss out on the party. But when I stepped back, I realized the laughter, the conversations, the memories, none of that came from off my plate. That was not created by just staring at my plate and shoveling cake in as fast as I can. It came
Right.
from the people. And I knew if I started in on the cake, it would take me out of the moment. I learned that from Jamie, that starting in on the food takes you out of life. And I ended up leaving that party lighter, proud, and still very much included. That was a turning point for me. And also, when I'm in those moments, I only have one rule for myself. If I can stay out of the sugar, that's big enough for that event. I don't try to make any other rules other than that because that takes all the bandwidth I've got for that. And that eases up a lot of the pressure to be perfect. Do you feel like you had any small ahas that made recovery feel doable instead of overwhelming for you?
Yeah, similar things, but again, I just remind myself, it's usually around the way I feel, right? The
Hmm.
autoimmunity that I deal with, it really does get triggered by those highly processed things. So now I
Hmm.
just say I don't want to feel like junk when I eat that.
Right.
So I just don't. Or and I've never, I'm sure there are people out there who do this, but I have never looked back on a party, wedding, or any kind of celebration and thought, God, that cake was the best part. Like I've never thought that. I've never really remembered what the food tasted
Yeah.
like, or the food that was really bad for me or made my body hurt. I never really remembered that after the event. It was always, the connection. It was always,
Yeah.
the moments.
Hmm. Good point. Good way to wrap this up. before we get into listener questions, but we do want to say if fear is holding you back from recovery, you're not alone. This is very typical for everyone. Every person who has walked this road have faced those same voices of doubt. The key is remembering fear is a sign that you're standing at the edge of something meaningful.
I love that. I love that. And when you take one step forward, you're proving that fear wrong, right? Like, that, feel the fear and do it anyway kind of thing. We'd
Yep.
love to, hear from you. What's the fear that whispers to you on this journey, and how are you
Mhm.
working through that? So if you want
Yeah.
to take a moment, write that in the chat, or let us know in YouTube or on our podcast or on our Facebook page. We'd love to hear it.
Yeah. Yeah. So you want to do some lightning rounds of questions that
Sure.
came in for this one?
Sure. How First question, how do I know if I'm really ready to start recovery? There's really no, like, some people might have a punctuation mark. Um, but I think for me, again, uh, like I could say, oh, I started 17 years ago, but I've started again thousands of times since 17 years ago. So, um, just you make a new commitment every day, you make a new commitment every
Yeah.
season. There's different
Hmm.
things, or you have a setback, or life happens, right? I mean, there's just all kinds of things. So I don't want to say that I made a decision and then I kept going and never looked back, and I never had to redecide or recommit. That's recovery.
Yeah.
You do have to recommit, but I don't look at it as when I was ready. I just said, okay, tomorrow I'm just going to do this thing.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Sometimes I don't think it's like an official start. And even when you think, okay, I'm starting, I think several things have happened before to even get you to that place where you want to call it a starting point. So I think it's, again, a process, a journey, no start, no finish. Great answer.
Okay,
Uh,
sure.
what if I'm terrified of failing again? You know what? You might fail again, but isn't it scarier? For me, I think it's scarier to stay stuck in the grips of addiction, feeling like somebody has a chokehold on me, someone has control over me. To me, that's scarier. So you might fail, but I don't know what failure really, I don't really believe in failure so much.
Yeah. Well, it's always learning, right? Just like you said,
Mm-hmm.
it's not failure, it's feedback,
Mm-hmm.
which is important. Um, how do I handle family members who don't support my food choices? So yeah, this is something that Paige knows that I've dealt with a lot in not just family, but friends. I've told stories in the past about it. I think that for me, it's again, understanding why you're there, why you're being with family. It shouldn't really be about the food. And a lot of family gatherings are food focused.
Yeah.
My family is very food focused.
Yeah.
So for me, it was learning, sometimes it would be eating before I went and
Yeah.
just taking food totally out of the equation. Other times it was bringing my own food, and I've done that and been made fun of, and talked down to and criticized and ridiculed and laughed at by family. I have also just decided to have family over and cooked for everyone, right? So that I
Ooh,
could
I like that.
and I tell the story about slicing up the birthday cakes at the family functions and doing, slices for gigantic slices. Like if there's six of us at the table, I would cut this round cake into six hunks and give it out and say, hey, that's on you if you want to eat it or not, but I'm
Yeah.
throwing it away when it's done. Or if
Yeah.
you want to take it home, take the rest of your slice home, great. But it's out either way, it's out the door.
Right. Yeah. And I had that situation happen Saturday, and I ended up going just like when dinner was over. That's when I showed up because really, when you're eating dinner, you're not visiting that much anyway. So, and it worked out great. It worked out super. What if social gatherings feel impossible without processed foods? It's similar to what Jamie just said. Eat before you go. And for me, then there's no negotiation once I get there. I don't have to fiddle fart around with will I, won't I, what should I not, how much of this, how much of that. I don't want to mess with that. And I'm so much more relaxed if I just eat before and then have a sparkling water or whatever. Or oftentimes, I mentioned this earlier in the podcast, I'll just try an alternate activity to invite people to do that. And you
Mm.
may have to modify in the beginning. What you can do in the beginning and what you can do later are two completely different pictures. So just
Yes.
know it does get better as you strengthen those recovery muscles.
Yes. I agree. It does get better. How do I deal with cravings that feel stronger than my willpower? I think that that's a place to remember that there's probably some checking in you need to do with yourself. If I'm having a major craving, it's probably because I'm under eating something somewhere, or I've had a large amount of activity the day before and I'm hungry the next day.
Mhm.
So it's, and it's a lot of trial and error, but it takes a lot of self-trust to say my body knows, and I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I'm prioritizing the foods that make me feel my best and do the best for me. And usually if you just like if you are having a craving, sitting down and eating, I don't know, a big chunk of protein and some veggies or a big chunk of protein and some fruit, like having that and then seeing where the craving is. Because again, I don't cravings I think are an indicator of something else that may be missing from your diet.
And a very wise woman sitting here with me today once told me when I was basically whining about, I know I'm going to fail before I even get started. It's too hard going out to dinner. And you said, what's your self-talk like? And I'm like, oh. So I also think that that may be a myth that cravings are ever stronger than willpower. You're telling yourself they are, but they really aren't. And it just takes a little self-reflection and some mind work. I think that helps a lot too.
Mhm.
Okay, what if I'm afraid recovery will take away my comfort or joy? This fear is an opportunity to look a little deeper at which direction we should focus our attention. How can I comfort myself from within without relying on these outside sources of food? And by the way, food is just used to numb, not bring joy. If you
Right.
think about that, it's really not a joy-filled thing. It's more of a numbing thing. So
Mhm.
I don't know if
Uh,
you want to add anything to that, but
no, yeah, I mean, again, um, I food can enhance a joyful experience.
yeah,
And I think that there are some foods that, maybe a really fine, chef prepared meal might be something that, is enjoyed, but usually that's the kind of situation that you'd want to savor it.
yeah.
Um, and but it's not necessarily, the food isn't bringing you the joy. It's the whole event, right? It's being with
Hmm.
somebody or people that you love. It's, being in a new location. It's meeting new people. It's having new experiences. It's the setting. It's the location where you are, the restaurant that you're sitting in.
Hmm.
It's not just the food,
Yeah,
right? Because when you think about time it, how long you've spent eating that food, it's seconds, right, per bite and minutes per meal. That's not what's bringing you the joy.
yeah.
So I think it's important to be honest with yourself. How do I handle the fear of never eating my favorite foods again? We've talked about this ad nauseum. I mean, really, like there's um there's more to life than just food. And I think there's a lot there that you can unpack, as far as, having ease and comfort of life connected to food, right? There's
A-
probably a gap you have in your life with maybe a spiritual practice, a community connection practice, connection with family, connection with your inner self, connection with your inner family. There's probably lots of gaps of connection that you're having if you're um sad about giving up food. I'm not saying it's weird or that you're wrong to feel that way. Not at all. And I'm not saying that, but I'm saying it's an opportunity to look deeper and say, what am I missing in my life? Because it's not really the food.
yeah. And it's interesting. I was just having a conversation with a guest we're going to come have on in a few weeks, and she is a chef, and she used to cook for, I can't remember the basketball team. There's a couple different professional basketball teams that she cooked for, and she said, by the way, they were winning and their opponents were losing, the ones that didn't have these professional chefs, because I cooked real whole ingredient foods for these guys. And it brought up the point. I said to her, I always tell people if they're bored or feel like they're missing out, they're doing something wrong because I think recovery is exciting. I've never been bored. I love all my new foods. I make them to where they are wonderful, and I look forward genuinely to creating these beautiful dishes. So if you're making good, nutritious, nourishing food, your body and you should love those. And I think your desire for the other stuff will just naturally fade.
Yeah.
Okay. Is it normal to feel grief when I stop eating processed food? We have talked about that a little bit. Absolutely, grieving a loss and having a desire for growth can both be true at the same time. So that's another principle I did want to bring up. And I did. I missed it and would still be in it today if I didn't understand that it was absolutely destroying me.
Yeah. What if I don't trust myself to stick with recovery long term is the
Big
next
one.
question.
Big one.
Again, you don't, so this is like a um very valuable lesson that I learned in the 12-step recovery rooms. And it really is, you don't think about the big picture future. Just focus on what's right in front of you. Focus on today.
Mhm.
One day at a time is a
Yeah.
saying for a reason. Like don't future trip, don't get ahead of yourself. Don't think about all, well, what if and oh this and oh that. Just be here now. Focus
Yeah.
on today and do today to the best of your ability and then go to bed and you'll have what you need for tomorrow. Like it
Thank
really isn't,
you.
it really does not need to be thought about in long term because the minute we think about long term, we'll go off today.
Yeah. Thank you. I needed to hear that for myself personally. Thank you. That was a big one. Last one. How do I keep going when fear feels louder than hope? And we start with examining our thoughts with curiosity. What are you most afraid of? Stare that fear right down and start asking it questions. Don't be afraid of fear. And don't
Right.
be afraid of the answers because the answers will get you closer to your goals. So when you look fear directly in the face, it is generally never as bad as you think. And usually there's an answer there waiting for you.
Yes. I love that.
So, okay, anything else you want to add?
No, thank you. I think this is helpful,
Oh,
helpful
I love it.
episode.
Yeah. And if you want to find out more about us, you can find us at realfoodrecovery4u.com. That's the number four and the letter U. And our book is out on Amazon, Real Food Recovery. If food isn't the answer, what is the question? Then what is the question? Thanks so much, guys. See you next time. Bye bye.